Hey guys, Gaming Off the Grid here,
And you are watching Captain Algebra.
Hey everybody, Captain Algebra here. A couple months ago, everyone on YouTube was making their top 10 video games list of all time, and I was tagged by Wes from Gaming Off the Grid. So I figured it was about time I finally got around to making this video. Now this actually wasn't that hard to make. I pretty much knew the games I wanted in my list. It was more of the order. And I was actually surprised with the order that I ended up with. There's a game that if you know me, you watch my channel, that I've always said is my favorite game of all time. And after really thinking about it, it didn't quite make my number one. So we'll have to find out where it ended up. Let's get started. We've got Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES. So basically my first gaming memory is playing this game. For some reason, it's just always stuck with me. I remember playing Super Mario Bros. 3 all the time. Now we had 1, we had 2, we had Contra, we had Super C. We had a ton of good NES games. But this one that really stuck with me. And as much as I love Mario 1 and 2, this one just blew it out of the water. There was just something about the level design, the music, the character design. It's all amazing. And I always thought it was so cool as a kid, finding all the different secrets, the different warp whistles, breaking the rocks to find the Fire Brothers in World 2. It was awesome. And I still remember the first time I ever got to World 8, and there's that dark area where you can only see you and you're trying to navigate around. And those are some tough levels for a kid. And it's probably still to this day my favorite Mario game of all time. It's tough for me to compare the 3D Marios with the 2D Marios. They're just so different that it's really hard for me to tell which one I like best. But I think if push comes to shove, Super Mario Bros. 3 would be my favorite Mario game of all time. Luigis Mansion. This game was so cool when it came out. Now, I didn't have a GameCube at the time, but my brother did. And he bought it, and I tried it out, and I thought it was so cool. It was such a unique game. You know, you're playing as Luigi instead of Mario, and all you got is this flashlight and vacuum, and you're going around this mansion, finding ghosts and sucking them up, and I just thought it was super cool. And I think that's kind of why I end up being such a Luigi fan. To me, Luigi's the better character. I don't know why, I like Luigi more, and I think this was part of it. Now, I don't like how they made him super scared, and it's kind of stuck with him since then, but it's a solid game. It's one of those games I still try to play every single year, and I've played it so much. I know where everything is. I know how to get the best mansion. You know, I know where all the large gems are and stuff. I know where the blue ghosts are and the hidden mice that give you a bunch of money, and it's just a fun game. And the series as a whole is great. Dark Moon is okay on the 3DS. Luigi's Mansion 3 on the Switch is amazing, but none of them are ever quite as good as the original. And this is definitely a game I love going back to. Next up, we've got my favorite Zelda game of all time, and that is Twilight Princess. And I love it so much, I've got 3 copies of it. That's right. And you know what? When it comes to the Switch, I will buy that. Even though I hate ports to the Switch, I gotta buy Twilight Princess. And so, I didn't grow up playing Zelda. I played the original Zelda for like 5 minutes at a friend's house back in like kindergarten. But I don't think we knew what we were doing, so we just stopped and played a different game. We probably played Mario 3. And then I played Ocarina of Time at my buddy's house. My neighbor, he had that. But really, it wasn't until college that I actually bought Ocarina of Time and played through it myself. And so after that, I kind of wanted to play more games. So my buddy let me borrow Twilight Princess on the Wii, and I played through it, and I was instantly hooked. To me, it felt like it was a bigger, better, darker version of Ocarina of Time, and I absolutely loved it. Now, the game is definitely slow to get into at first, but once it opens up, it is amazing. I love Wolf Link. I think it's a super cool gameplay mechanic that they added in. I love finding all the different howling stones and then learning different techniques as Link. And it has probably one of my favorite Ganon fights of all time. I love the one-on-one duel with Ganondorf at the end. You know, it's a little bit different than the typical, like, hit a, you know, a lightning ball back and forth with him, and then once he gets hit, you go to attack him. You know, it's like, felt you were actually fighting him. And to this day, I am hooked on this game. I love to play it. Just this past year, I finally played through the Wii U version, which is amazing. And coming up is the Cartridge Club Game of the Month in April is Twilight Princess, so I look forward to finally playing through the GameCube version, and then I'll finally have played through every single version. But yeah, it is easily my favorite Zelda game of all time, and if you haven't played it, you have to. And then following up my favorite Zelda game of all time is my favorite Resident Evil game of all time, and that is Resident Evil 4. Again, another game I've got plenty of copies of. We've got the GameCube, we've got the Wii, and we've got the PS4. Now, I grew up playing the PS2 version, but to me the Wii will always be the best because playing with the Wiimote and aiming with that is phenomenal. It works perfectly. So I was never really big into the Resident Evil series. I had tried, I think, 2. My girlfriend at the time loved it and played it. I tried playing it once. I couldn't get into it. I didn't like the tank controls. I didn't like the fixed camera. It just wasn't good for me. And so we were hanging out at school, in high school, getting ready for pep band, and we used to hang out and play video games beforehand. And so my buddy brought in his GameCube and brought Resident Evil 4 in, and I was like, this game looks awesome. And so I grabbed it on PS2, and I was hooked. I love it. And I liked it as more actiony than survival horror. I don't like having limited ammo and stuff. I like being able to kill every single enemy that comes at me. You know, I don't like having to run away and hide. That's not my style of game. And so I liked having enough ammo. I loved getting the different weapons and being able to upgrade them. That was super cool. And I think obviously my favorite weapon is the Chicago typewriter. That weapon is phenomenal. It's so cool, like once you unlock it, to run through the game as fast as you can with it, because it just destroys everything. Bosses, regular enemies, it doesn't matter. You kick their ass. And it's, to this day, it's phenomenal. Resident Evil 7 comes very, very close. I absolutely love that game. But I think it'd be very tough for something to beat out Resident Evil 4 as my favorite Resident Evil game. Now I know they're remastering it and remaking it. I love what they did with Resident Evil 2 Remake. I haven't played 3 yet, but I'm very nervous about 4 because I love it so much. To me, it's already the perfect Resident Evil game. I don't need it to change, but we'll see what happens. And then we've got our only modern game that made the list. I was very surprised that any modern game made the list because nostalgia plays a huge part in the games that we love. And when I was thinking about this, it's like, I don't know if any modern game that I've played, as much as I like some of them, have the nostalgia to back it up. And so when I made this list, one of the things I made sure of was to make my list, it had to be a game that I played multiple times. If I've only played through it once, there's no way it can be on the top 10 list, right? It has to be something I want to go back to all the time and that I have gone back to. And fortunately, this one just makes that cut. When for the Cartridge Club, was it last year or maybe 2 years ago, I finally got a chance to go back and play it, and I was not disappointed. And that is God of War 2018. Now, God of War is my favorite franchise of all time. I just love Greek mythology. I thought Kratos was a badass. And I was introduced to it back in college when my buddy had bought God of War 2 and I was watching him play and it looked awesome. And so I got hooked. I bought all the games. I've played through them and I've loved them. So when they announced God of War for the PS4, I was very nervous because they mentioned it was going to be different, right? It's going to have a different play style. And it definitely does. But you know what? It delivers. The play style still works. Spoiler alert, I love when you get the Blades of Chaos. That was such a cool moment. Like, I literally had, like, chills going through my body because of how cool it was. And once I got that, I pretty much used those as my main weapons. I didn't really want to go back to the Leviathan axe, even though it was cool. Having the chains, the Blades of Chaos was pretty sweet. But just the scope of this game is amazing. The scenery, the visuals, and now graphics are the least important thing to me in a video game. But this game is so beautiful. And the story, it's so good. I love watching the relationship between Kratos and Atreus evolve throughout. I love when they get Mimir and he's hanging along for the ride and you're in a boat going somewhere and he starts to tell a story, there were times where I'd get to my destination and I would keep rowing so I could hear him finish the story. I loved all the little details they put into it. And thankfully for the Cartridge Club playing it, I was able to go back and platinum it, which was awesome. Fighting the Valkyries was insane, especially the Queen, but oh my god, was it worth it. I cannot wait for God of War Ragnarok. Super excited for that one. If you like God of War, you gotta check this one out. And next up on my list, Halo Reach. So back in the day, back in high school, had a bunch of friends. We used to get together and system link the Xbox and play Halo and Halo 2. And I was terrible. So we had a blue team and a red team, and they traded me. I was so bad, they traded me. They got rid of me. They didn't want me. You know, they basically used me as a meat shield, and it was deserved. I was terrible. I think it was the first-person shooter that I'd played that you'd, one stick to move and one stick to look around. All I had played was Doom. And you didn't have to really aim that well in Doom, You just aimed in the general vicinity of enemy and you're going to hit them. And so I was bad. And so I was in college when Halo Reach came out, and my buddy that I was living with bought it on release. And I think they had like one of those like 1 month or 2 month Xbox Live Gold membership, so they let me use it, and I played the hell out of this game. I was determined to actually be good at Halo for once, and I ended up being pretty decent. And I'd always play snipers because that was one thing that I loved. I loved being able to sit back far away and just be able to pick people off with a sniper rifle. It was so cool. So it got to the point where I was only playing team snipers, and that was it. And I loved Hemorrhage. That map is phenomenal because it's such a big map that you really can sit back. I know some people hate campers, but you're using a sniper rifle. You're not going to run up and hit some people close range with a sniper rifle. You're going to sit back. And it was so fun. And that's probably one of the things I miss most about online gaming. I don't really do it much anymore. Part of it is the time and stuff. Man, I spent hours upon hours of playing this game. Whether it was back in college where I had to get up for student teaching the next morning and my roommates would convince me for one more game, which turned into like an hour or two more of game time, to when I finally bought my own Xbox 360 after I got my first job right out of college, and I would spend hours playing at night. I would play during the day, and finally it was right before I got married. I finally called it quits, and I did get I think a 48-hour Xbox Live code I think last summer. And because I got into the game and it still works, so I played for a little bit. Man, it sucks. It's so hard finding people for matchmaking these days. But I can still relive some of my old glory days. I've saved some of my my former matches, which you guys have been seeing here in the video, and it was so much fun. It's going to be pretty sad when the Reach servers are down for good. I don't know, maybe they are already, but I had so much fun playing this game. All right, getting into the nitty-gritty. We're down to the final 4. Next one, God of War 2. So I mentioned God of War being my favorite franchise of all time, so there had to be 2 games in the series, and God of War 2 is what got started for me. I mentioned that I was in college and my buddy bought God of War 2 and I was watching him play it. I'm like, this looks awesome. I need this. So I went out and bought both God of War and God of War 2 because I had to play the first one first. Loved it. But then you play the second one right after, and they just kind of refine some of the things. And overall, I like the story more. I just love how badass Kratos is. He's so angry at what's happened to him, and he's going on the revenge tour. And just the start of this game was phenomenal. You're fighting the Colossus, and you're going around getting the weapons from the Titans and stuff, and then you fight Zeus at the end. It is such a cool game. Now, you can't go wrong with any of the games in the original trilogy, and honestly, God of War Ascension, the PSP games, Ghost of Sparta, and Chains of Olympus are great too. Can't go wrong with them. But man, God of War 2 will always be my favorite. I don't think anything can top it. All right, final three. We got another NES game, Super C. That's right, for those of you that know me, for the years I've been saying Super C is my favorite game of all time. And you know what? I love it. But there are two games that I like more. But Super C, again, just like Mario 3, one of my earliest gaming memories. I still remember the first time playing it. You know, there's the lightning flashing, the music starting, and you are rappelling down the helicopter into the stage, and enemies are starting to come at you. And I just love it. To this day, that is one of my favorite opening moments of a game. It was just super cool. It set the mood exactly. And everyone knows Contra is a great run and gun game. Super C, in my opinion, is way better than the original Contra. I love the original Contra, but this is so much more refined. The graphics look better, and again, graphics aren't too important for me, but everything looks better, the enemies look better, your sprite looks better, and the fact that you can see your bullets better and enemies' bullets makes a huge difference, right? They're actually like kind of glowing in this game, whereas the original Contra, they're just white, and then you get to some levels, like the snow level in Contra, and it's super hard to see those bullets. So I like that you could always see the bullets here, and everything about this game is phenomenal. It controls perfectly, right? If you screw up in a Contra game, it's your fault, okay? You can pretty much get out of almost every situation. I don't like how they made the spread be a little bit weaker, but it is what it is. It was pretty OP in the first Contra game. So I love this game. It's one of my prized possessions, being complete in box. I know it's not a super expensive game, but I love it so much. Number 2, my favorite Super Nintendo game of all time, Donkey Kong Country 2. The Donkey Kong Country series as a whole is pretty solid. 1 is amazing, 3 is alright, and then like the new games, Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Country Returns are okay. But man, none of them are as good as this game. They basically took a damn near perfect game in Donkey Kong Country and upped the ante and made it that much better, right? The levels are better. The character designs are better. Dixie is an amazing ad. I love her hair twirl. It's probably my favorite move to use in the game. Now, Diddy's awesome. I love using Diddy in the first game, but Dixie, she's phenomenal. Her hair twirl makes a load of difference. And I love all the bonus barrels in this one. I felt like in this game, unlike the first one, you had to kind of like take leaps of faith for bonus barrels. In this one, they're not that hard to find. Some can be, but there's no leaps of faith, you know? It just makes more sense on how to find them. So this is one of those games from the moment I started playing it, I've 100%ed it every single time I've played it. I love doing it all. I love doing the Lost World, even though some of those levels get pretty tough. I love fighting K. Rool a second time in the Lost World to get the true ending. Everything about it is amazing. It is the pinnacle of Super Nintendo games, in my opinion. Now, I know, Peter from Waves of Games, you're going to be disappointed. The only thing that Donkey Kong Country does better than this one is the soundtrack, in my opinion. But this one's still amazing. Stickerbush Symphony, anybody? Oh, amazing. I really wish, you know, when them making new Donkey Kong Country games that would be as good as this game, but they haven't done it yet. I hope they do someday, but until then, this will always be my favorite. And before we get to my number 1, figure we do a little honorable mentions. We've got Super Mario 3D World, probably my favorite 3D Mario game of all time. We got Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, the original Crash Bandicoot, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Oh man, the amount of hours I put in this game back in college, insane. And the original Donkey Kong Country. All right, here we go. My favorite game of all time. And honestly, it wasn't that close. As much as I love Super C and Donkey Kong Country 2, this is the game I have gone back to the most in my life. Streets of Rage 2 on the Sega Genesis. The perfect beat-em-up of all time. The best beat-em-up of all time, in my opinion. This game does everything right. The different characters that all have different attributes, whether it's speed, it's power, the level design, the music. Yuzo Koshiro does an amazing job with the soundtrack. One of my favorite soundtracks in gaming. And some beat-em-ups can feel super cheap. You know, sometimes you feel like you can't really go toe-to-toe with an enemy. But in this one you can. You know, you can really brawl with them. And the sounds when you're fighting enemies are perfect. Like, it makes it really sound like you're hitting an enemy. And you have so many different moves. Whether you're grabbing them and then pushing towards while you're grabbing them or pushing away. You can jump over them. Skate can flip over them and throw them. He can go on top of them and punch him in the head. Axel with his bare knuckle across the ground. The most OP move in the game, in my opinion. It's just phenomenal. I love the series. Every game in the series is great, from Streets of Rage 1 all the way to Streets of Rage 4. But this one is perfect in my opinion. Streets of Rage 1 laid the groundwork, but it's still rough around the edges. Streets of Rage 3, they did that kind of huge difficulty spike for the North American version, and it doesn't seem as good. And the Streets of Rage 4 is amazing, but it just doesn't capture the nostalgia that I have for the series like Streets of Rage 2 does. I still remember the first time I played it, my mom borrowed it from a coworker, and I was blown away. I thought this was the coolest game ever. And so after that, we ended up buying the first game in the series, and I've never looked back. This is one of those games that I can go back to all the time and play. Just when I was capturing footage for this, I played through the whole game. You know, I was thinking, oh, let's get a few stages. But I was like, no, I'm gonna play through it because I love it. I love playing through a co-op. I know some people complain about the friendly fire, but honestly, if you know what you're doing in this game, you can stay away from each other and not hit each other. So, yeah, Streets of Rage 2, my favorite game of all time. So there you go. Thank you so much for Wes for nominating me. I know a lot of people, when they got tagged in these videos, they were kind of dreading it. You know, how do you pick your 10 favorite games of all time? And, you know, I think for a lot of people, it's going to change, right? You could ask someone now, and then you could ask someone a month from now, and it might change. But honestly, like I said, it was not hard for me. Most of these games I've been playing since childhood, and they're games that I continually go back to all the time, and I want to. And that really, to me, was something that had to be part of my list, right? If you only play a game once, how can it be one of your top 10 games of all time? I get some games are super long, but obviously, honestly, if a game's really long, but you still love it, you're gonna find ways to go back to it. And plus, every time you play a game, you're gonna get faster at it. And yeah, so I was really excited to make this list and to really narrow down my favorite games of all time. Now, obviously, years from now, this could change. I doubt it would change much because, as you can see, it's mostly retro games. There's not really anything modern here. So unless a modern game completely blows some of these out of the water, I think this is pretty much it. This is my top 10 of all time, and I don't really see it changing much. So obviously, since these tags are months old, feel free, leave yours in the comments below, your top 10 games. Make a video yourself, let me know. If you do that, I'd love to watch it. But thank you so much for watching. Until next time, this is Captain Algebra, signing off.